how's it going guys, Kris here, and I'm kicking off a brand new series of weapon versus for Battlefield 5, where I pit two of the game's guns against each other to see how they compare, and how they're better than the other in specific ways. Thought I'd start off with two of the most aggressive medic weapons in the game, the Chicago typewriter itself, the M1928a1, which a lot of you guys might know it as the Tommy gun, along with a rapid firing monster from Finland, the Suomi KP-31. A pair of fast-firing SMGs that are both capable of wiping the smile of anyone's face in CQC and putting them down faster than you can say the word sanitator. Both of these guns have quite a lot of similar factors, and they even have an identical set of specializations too, affecting a lot of the same things like rate of fire and ammo capacity. But despite being the same sort of lead-spewing machines on the face of it, the two weapons are indeed better and worse than each other in certain situations, having stats that benefit them more so in specific ways over the other, which is exactly what I'm going to be running over and explaining throughout this video. So anyway, here it is, the battle of the bullet hoses. So first of all, probably one of the main reasons why you'd want to pick either of these weapons is because they're really bloody dangerous, with lethality being one of the strongest factors linking the two guns together. The Tommy gun fires 45 ACP, whereas the Suomi uses the 9mm Parabellum round. Though despite using different cartridges, they both deal the same amount of close and long range damage, with bullets inflicting a maximum of 25 up to 10 meters, translating over to a 4-shot kill in close quarters. As your bullet travels further through the air, damage is going to gradually decrease, as you'd probably expect, meaning it'll take up to 8 bullets to kill beyond 75 meters. So both guns require quite a lot of direct hits to drop enemies further away, though they're both going to perform pretty well within shorter sightlines. The damage might practically be the same between the two guns, putting them on par with each other when it comes to damage per bullet, but the main thing that separates them regarding lethality all comes down to that rate of fire, which we can safely say is pretty generous, no matter which one you choose to pick up. The Tommy gun shoots at the nippy speed of 720 RPM, definitely a very nice speed for a close range weapon to shoot at, though the Suomi's base fire rate actually slightly beats this, with it firing 50 RPM quicker at 770 RPM. So basically an increase of about 7%. This isn't really a drastic difference, but it still gives the Suomi a bit of an edge in gunfights, allowing it to kill slightly faster in the process. Though because the difference between the M1928 and the Suomi's fire rates are so marginal, you're probably not really going to notice a massive contrast between their performances in a lot of situations, with them both having plenty of stopping power to put your enemies down hard and fast. Regarding the base fire rates and damage models of the guns, it all seems quite obvious and straightforward. The Suomi wins this category fair and square. But when you get those specializations involved, well, that's when things start to get pretty interesting, because the fact that you have the ability to ramp up both weapons' fire rates even higher using the light bolt spec potentially makes them even more brutal, just when you thought they were deadly enough. Slapping the light bolt spec on the Thompson is going to boost its fire rate up to 900 RPM, basically firing 180 RPM faster, which now beats the Suomi's standard fire rate, making it a deadlier weapon. Though the Suomi also happens to have the light bolt specialization too, and if you really want to blitz through your enemies like they're made of wet paper, then the Suomi's fire rate can be cranked up to a total of 981 RPM, putting it on top and making it the most powerful weapon of the two. This is an increase of 211 RPM. So I should probably say here that the Suomi's light bolt actually has slightly more effect on the gun's rate of fire than the Tommy gun's light bolt, which has a fire rate increase of 25% as opposed to about 27.5%. So basically, not only does the standard Suomi have the ability to fire quicker than the M1928, but its light bolt spec is also going to grant it a little bit more speed too, potentially making it a more worthwhile choice. Now, straight away, I can safely say that, along with sharing a similar level of lethality, both the M1928 and the Suomi are also going to have a lot of similarities regarding their overall precision too, which isn't really a massive revelation, due to them being rapid-firing bullet hoses with the same sort of qualities, and of course, their overall precision isn't exactly the best. With that said, there's still quite a few differences that are going to impact the gun's accuracy and stability, which could affect kill times over certain ranges, due to more shots flying off target. Not the best thing when you want to fully utilise those ridiculously high fire rates. The Tommy gun's got a vertical recoil kick value of 0.7, so for every bullet fired, it's going to kick 0.7 degrees upwards. As for the Suomi, well, that's got a slightly higher vertical figure of 0.76, making it a little bit less controllable in full auto fire. This higher recoil trend also carries over to the gun's horizontal values too, with the Thompson having lower left and right kick values of 0.45 as opposed to the Suomi's values of 0.465, generally making the Tommy gun a little bit more accurate and stable as a result. Neither of the guns are going to gain any additional recoil per shot, so the only thing really affecting the weapon's bullet trajectory is those said recoil patterns and just the general spread stats and muzzle velocity, which are basically identical for both weapons. When you apply the light bolt spec, this doesn't directly alter any of the gun's recoil stats, meaning they're both going to kick around in the same sort of way with or without that specialization applied. Though because the two guns fire so quickly, this puts a bit more emphasis on their recoil patterns, making them seem very exaggerated. And of course, the higher the rate of fire, the more difficult they'll be to control in full auto, due to each shot generating more and more recoil in a shorter space of time. This means that by increasing the rate of fire with the light bolt, you're probably going to find the two guns harder to control, potentially limiting their effective ranges and making them even less suitable for mid-range combat. There are, however, quite a few other specializations that do directly affect weapon precision, basically making both weapons easier to use in certain ways, as the ported barrel is going to reduce the horizontal recoil down by about 18%, so a Suomi with a ported barrel is going to be more accurate than a normal Thompson, though if you equip the ported barrel on the Tommy gun, then it's going to have the superior accuracy of the two. Same thing goes for vertical recoil as well, with both guns having the option to equip the recoil buffer, affecting vertical kick instead. So obviously, if you want the best recoil pattern possible out of all the combinations, then the Tommy gun with both the ported barrel and recoil buffer applied is going to give you the best results overall. Hipfire accuracy is yet another thing to keep in mind, especially with these two guns being well suited for hipfire tactics in CQC, and so with them both having specializations to improve hip spread in the form of the enhanced grips and polished action, these are going to go really well with aggressive playstyles. These specializations are only going to affect hipfire spread, not recoil. So using either or both of these specs with one of the guns is going to give you the very same hipfire spread stats as the other. Though with the Thompson having those lower recoil figures as well, this is also going to reflect on its hipfire accuracy too, still making it the more precise choice, when both guns have the same specializations applied. Another thing that puts the Thompson and the Suomi on a similar kind of level is the way they handle with ammunition and their overall versatility. The two guns both feature detachable box magazines with a standard capacity of 20 rounds, and because they fire at some pretty fast rates, those magazines aren't exactly going to last very long. This becomes even more of a problem when you choose to ramp up either of the weapon's fire rates with the light bolt spec, as the faster you fire, the quicker those 20-shot mags are going to get depleted. So although you're going to be able to snuff your opponents out in quicker times, potentially allowing you to win more gunfights, this is also going to essentially lower the gun's overall reliability, forcing you to reload more often, and prevent you from taking on as many enemies one after the other in quick succession. The extended magazine spec is going to prohibit the use of the light bolt, but is going to boost the ammo capacity for both weapons up to 50 rounds, giving you over twice as many bullets to wreak havoc with. You won't be able to benefit from those blisteringly fast fire rates, but you will be able to stay in the fight for longer, and because you'll be discharging less bullets in a shorter amount of time, basically because you're firing a bit slower, ammo should be easier to manage, and you'll find yourself performing more of the faster tactical reloads instead of the slower empty ones. Speaking of those reload times, in this case, extended magazines take exactly the same amount of time to reload as the standard 20-shot mags, so they're going to benefit reliability without taking anything away as a trade-off. But the most apparent thing to point out is that no matter which specialization combo you choose to pick, the Thompson's always going to have the fastest reload speeds, with tactical reloads taking 2 seconds as opposed to the Suomi's 2.5 second reloads, and empty ones taking 2.95 seconds instead of 3.75 seconds, basically giving the Tommy gun roughly about 20% faster reloads overall. This makes it slightly more dependable in close quarters, because you'll be a little bit less vulnerable. And combined with the fact that the Suomi can often run out of ammo quicker, especially when you've got that light bolt on, often makes it an even riskier weapon to use up on the front lines, where it's going to be most effective. Having to perform those pretty lengthy reloads, almost taking up to 4 seconds to switch over when your magazine runs dry, often means that you'll struggle a bit more to stay alive when you get yourself surrounded, generally making the M1928a1 with its lower fire rates and quicker reloads a slightly more reliable gun, when no specialization choices are mirrored. So anyway, which gun should you choose? Both the Thompson and the Suomi function in very similar ways, and are really going to complement offensive tactics when used in the hands of aggressive players. And the fact that they both essentially have the very same specializations and share a lot of the same sort of characteristics as each other means that if you like to use one, then you'll probably also like using the other too. Though with that said, there's still plenty of reasons why you might want to pick one over the other, with the two SMGs having enough distinction to make them seem individual. The Suomi is generally the angrier, more vicious gun, having fire rates that can exceed the M1928, and so in close quarter gunfights with enemy players, it might often seem to kill a tad quicker, and be the more dominant choice for winning 1v1 battles. Depending on specialization choices, the Tommy gun can still potentially fire faster than the standard Suomi, but that's only if you choose to sacrifice its extended mags option on the other side of the spectrum. When choosing specializations for both weapons, you're going to have to decide whether you want a more versatile gun or a dangerous one, and the Suomi might have the ability to fire the fastest and kill the quickest, but this all comes at a price in return. The Thompson's not only going to have a slightly easier recoil pattern to control, making it more accurate, and possibly easier to use beyond closer ranges, but its reload speeds are also a little bit faster too, despite both guns holding the same number of rounds per magazine. This bridges the gap between both weapons, should you decide to increase the fire rate rather than the mag size, as the light bolt spec is going to make the Suomi the deadliest option overall, but its negative factors will also be more prominent, which might seem slightly less problematic if you were to choose the same choices with the Thompson. In close quarters, where both weapons are designed to succeed, the Suomi's lower accuracy might not exactly seem like a very big issue, but the fact that its reloads are slower than the M1928 means that you're likely to get yourself into more sticky situations, perhaps even needing to rely on that trusty sidearm more often too. Picking opposite specialization routes for the two weapons is going to drastically increase either lethality or accuracy and reliability over the other weapon. So basically, a Tommy gun with the light bolt and enhanced grips is going to be more powerful but less dependable than a Suomi with extended mags and a ported barrel, and vice versa. And so it's really up to you whether you want to play to a gun's strengths or counter its weaknesses when choosing those specializations. But generally, the Tommy gun is going to seem like a slightly less amplified version of the Suomi in a lot of cases, being a little bit easier to manage and use within close to mid ranges, yet still hold on to a lot of power to make it a very deadly weapon nevertheless. Though if you want to put all of your eggs in one basket and potentially have something a little bit more savage, then the Suomi will typically be able to beat the Tommy gun in terms of its time to kill, depending on those spec choices of course, and so it might fit in better with a more gung-ho playstyle, optimizing lethality most of all, and then putting up with the extra risks that come with it afterwards. So that's all I've got for you in this one guys, hope you enjoyed the video and maybe learned a few things. Give me a like if you did, and let me know down in the comments which is your favourite gun out of the M1928a1 and the Suomi KP-31. Thanks for watching, and I'll be seeing you in that next episode.